Welcome back to True Crime Documentary YouTube channel. Imagine a town where trust is so profound that doors are left wide open and every face is familiar. Now, picture that same town harboring a sinister secret, one so dark it destroys everything you thought you knew. What if the person you trusted most, the priest who shaped your faith, was hiding a chilling truth? When Clara Bennett, the soul of Bridgedale, goes missing, a horrifying reality emerges. But by then, it's too late to turn back. How far would someone go to conceal their darkest secret? And what if that secret ends in murder? Our story takes place in Bridgedale, a small, quiet town nestled in the rolling hills of North Carolina. From the outside, it seemed like the perfect place to live. Idyllic, peaceful, a town where everyone knew each other, where people left their doors unlocked, and where you could always count on a friendly wave from a neighbor. At the heart of this town stood Holy Trinity Church, a grand old building that was as much a part of Bridgedale as the hills themselves. For decades, it had been a place of refuge, of peace, of hope, but no one knew that this very church would become the center of a horrifying mystery. Holy Trinity was more than just a place of worship. It was the cornerstone of Bridgedale's social and spiritual life, and leading the congregation was Father Michael Donovan. Father Michael wasn't just a priest, he was a figure of authority, a man whose advice was sought on everything from personal conflicts to spiritual guidance. He had been in Bridgedale for over a decade, and during that time, he had become an essential part of the community. His sermons were inspiring, his presence calming, and his door was always open to anyone who needed help. But beneath the surface, something was terribly wrong, and no one, least of all the trusting people of Bridgedale, could see the storm that was about to tear their community apart. Our story begins with Clara Bennett. Clara was in her early 30s, kind-hearted, generous, and deeply involved in the church. If you lived in Bridgedale, you knew Clara. She was always helping out with church activities, organizing Sunday school for the kids, and visiting the elderly to make sure they were cared for. Her smile was infectious, and her kindness knew no bounds. To say she was beloved would be an understatement. Clara was the heart of Bridgedale. But one cold October morning, Clara disappeared. At first, no one thought much of it. Clara was a responsible woman, but maybe she had gone on an impromptu trip or was visiting family. After all, she was always doing things for others. But when hours turned into days, and Clara still hadn't returned, people began to worry. Her phone went unanswered, her house was eerily empty, and a deep sense of unease began to settle over the town. Soon, a search party was organized. Everyone in Bridgedale came together, combing the nearby woods, asking neighbors if they'd seen her, calling family members. But as the hours dragged on, hope began to fade. And then, the worst possible news came. Clara's body was found inside Holy Trinity Church. The discovery shocked everyone. How could something so terrible happen here, in Bridgedale, in their church? But it wasn't just that Clara had been killed. It was the brutal way in which she was murdered. Her body had been mutilated, her face disfigured beyond recognition, and next to her, on the floor, lay a bloody cross. This wasn't just a murder. It was something far darker, something that carried a message. The town was plunged into chaos. People were scared, confused, and angry. How could something like this happen in a place like Bridgedale? Who could have done this to Clara, a woman loved by everyone? And why? The authorities quickly realized they were dealing with more than just a small-town crime. Enter Detective Rachel Mitchell and her partner, Aaron Collins. Both seasoned investigators, they were called in to handle the case that was now gripping the entire town. From the moment they arrived, they could sense that something was deeply wrong. The streets of Bridgedale, usually lively and filled with chatter, were silent. There was a tension in the air, a fear that had wrapped its cold fingers around every corner of the town. Their first stop was Holy Trinity Church, the crime scene. As they walked through the grand, dimly lit corridors of the church, the silence was almost oppressive. It was hard to believe that a place once filled with prayer and peace had now become the site of a horrifying murder. But the crime scene itself was strange. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence that Clara had tried to fight back. Whoever had killed her had done so with precision, with calm. It was clear that Clara had either been caught completely off guard or, worse, she had known her killer. It was then that they first met Father Michael Donovan. Father Michael was everything you would expect from a man of the cloth. He was calm, soft-spoken, and his face was etched with sorrow as he spoke about the tragedy that had befallen Clara. He told the detectives that he had been praying alone in the church on the night of the murder, but he hadn't seen or heard anything unusual. There was something about Father Michael's demeanor that immediately caught Detective Mitchell's attention. He was calm, too calm. It was as if the weight of what had happened hadn't fully hit him, or perhaps he was hiding something. The investigation continued, and as Mitchell and Collins began speaking to members of the congregation, a more disturbing picture started to emerge. Clara hadn't been herself in the weeks leading up to her death. Normally cheerful and full of energy, she had become distant, withdrawn, and anxious. Her best friend, Emma, told the detectives that Clara had confided in her one night. She had said that she felt like someone was watching her, even following her, but it wasn't just anywhere that she felt this presence. It was inside the church. Clara had mentioned seeing a man in black, someone who seemed to be lurking in the shadows, but when Emma asked for more details, Clara simply said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." This revelation added a whole new layer to the case. What had Clara seen, and why had she been so afraid to talk about it? Things took an even darker turn when the detectives discovered Clara's journal. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom, the journal was filled with entries detailing her growing fear. She had written about cryptic conversations she'd had with Father Michael, conversations that left her feeling unsettled and afraid. In one entry, she wrote, "I don't know who I can trust anymore. He is not who I thought he was. I know too much." As Mitchell read through the journal, a sense of dread began to wash over her. What had Clara discovered? And could Father Michael, the man everyone trusted, be involved in something so dark? As the detectives dug deeper into Father Michael's background, more disturbing details began to surface. They uncovered financial irregularities within the church's accounts, large sums of money being moved around without any clear explanation. It seemed that Father Michael had been involved in questionable real estate deals, using the church's funds for his own personal gain. But that wasn't the most shocking revelation. Rumors began to spread that Father Michael had fathered a child out of wedlock, a child he had kept hidden for years. The child, now a teenager, lived in a nearby town, and the scandal had been quietly buried by those in power. But Clara, it seemed, had somehow uncovered the truth, and that truth had made her a target. The investigation was now moving at full speed, but just when Mitchell and Collins thought they had pieced everything together, another shocking discovery emerged. Security footage from the night of the murder showed a man entering the church. He was dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by a hood, and he moved with deliberate caution, as if he knew the church's layout. The man was careful not to be seen, but it was clear that he wasn't just a passerby. He was there for a reason. The detectives were able to identify the man as Matthew Harris, a private investigator with a shady past. Harris was known for doing dirty work for those who wanted to keep their hands clean, and when the detectives brought him in for questioning, he didn't take long to crack. Harris admitted that he had been hired by Father Michael. The plan, according to Harris, was to scare Clara into silence. She had found out too much about Father Michael's financial dealings and his secret child, and she had become a threat. But things had gone wrong. When Clara had refused to back down, Harris panicked. In the heat of the moment, he had killed her. It was a shocking confession, but it confirmed what Detective Mitchell had suspected all along. Father Michael had been hiding more than just secrets. He had orchestrated a murder to protect his reputation. Father Michael was arrested, and the trial that followed was a spectacle that rocked Bridgedale to its core. The evidence was damning, and the town that had once revered Father Michael as a man of God now saw him for what he truly was: a manipulator, a liar, and a murderer. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But while justice had been served, the town of Bridgedale was forever changed. Holy Trinity Church, once the heart of the community, stood empty. Its doors were closed, its pews gathering dust. The congregation had scattered, their faith shattered. People who had once trusted Father Michael implicitly now questioned everything. If a man like him could be hiding such terrible secrets, who could they trust? Emma, devastated by the loss of her best friend, left Bridgedale not long after the trial. She couldn't bear to stay in a town filled with so many painful memories. She had trusted Father Michael, just like everyone else, and that trust had been shattered. As for Detective Mitchell and Collins, the case left a deep scar. They had solved the mystery, but at what cost? The community they had come to help was left in ruins. People who had once believed in the sanctity of their town now looked over their shoulders, wondering if the person next to them was hiding something dark. In the end, the story of Bridgedale is not just about the murder of Clara Bennett. It's a tale of betrayal, of how one man's greed and fear of exposure led to the destruction of an entire community. It's a reminder that evil can hide in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out our other videos for more captivating stories. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.